everyone, and welcome to the simple synopsis of The Crucible by Arthur Miller. If you're studying this text for higher drama or English, you might find this useful. Whilst the synopsis does not go into extreme detail, it does give you a great overview of each act and the key moments within them. You might want to take notes as you listen and expand on the synopsis using your knowledge of the play. Some of you might also find it useful to start thinking about quotes for some of the moments mentioned in this video. Act 1. The Crucible takes place in Salem, Massachusetts in 1692. The action begins in the home of Reverend Paris, whose daughter Betty lies unconscious in her attic bed and appears to be very ill. Around midnight the night before, Paris had discovered Betty, his orphaned niece Abigail, and Tituba, his slave, dancing in the woods. His discovery causes Betty to faint and be overcome with this illness. Abigail denies any wrongdoing or accusations of witchcraft to her uncle in this moment. The local doctor is unable to determine the cause of Betty's illness. Mr. and Mrs. Putnam, also from Salem, arrive and reveal to Paris that their young daughter Ruth is also ill. There is talk in the village of an unnatural cause, and rumours that it might be witchcraft, and that Betty has been seen flying. Whilst the adults are downstairs, Abigail warns her friend Mercy Lewis and the proctor's servant Mary Warren not to reveal that they were all casting spells in the woods. We learn that Abigail tried to cast a spell to kill Goody Proctor, John Proctor's wife. Betty suddenly wakes, and Abigail threatens the other girls with violence if they tell anyone that she drank blood and cast a spell in order to kill Goody Proctor. Betty loses consciousness again. John Proctor and Abigail talk privately about their former relationship. Before the play had begun, Abigail worked as a servant in the Proctor household, whilst Elizabeth Proctor was ill. When Elizabeth discovered that Abigail and John were having an affair, she dismissed Abigail. During their discussion, Abigail becomes angry with Proctor because he refuses to acknowledge he had any feelings for her. Betty wakes again and is hysterical. Rebecca Nurse, a respected elder, is visiting the Paris household and calms her. Rebecca warns Paris that identifying witchcraft as the cause of Betty's illness is dangerous and will lead to further problems in Salem. Mr. Putnam asks Rebecca to visit Ruth and attempt to wake her. Ruth is the only Putnam child to survive infancy, and Mrs. Putnam is jealous of Rebecca because all of Rebecca's children are healthy, whereas Mrs. Putnam has lost 7 infant children. Mr. Putnam, Proctor, and Giles Corey argue with Paris about his salary and other expectations. Paris claims that a faction is working to drive him out of town, and he disputes their salary figures. Putnam, Proctor, and Corey then begin arguing over property lines and ownership. Putnam accuses Proctor of stealing wood from land that he does not own, but Proctor defends himself, stating that he purchased the land from Francis Nurse 5 months ago. Putnam claims Francis had no right to the land and therefore could not sell it. We are already starting to see that there is unrest in Salem. Reverend Hale of Beverley arrives from another town to investigate the strange events in Salem. He has been summoned as an expert in witchcraft and to determine if witchcraft is behind the children's illnesses. Hale learns that the girls were dancing in the woods with Tituba, and that Tituba can conjure spirits. Abigail then blames Tituba for encouraging her to commit sins. Hale then questions Tituba, and she admits that she has seen the devil and has seen him with other women in the village. Abigail also confesses to witchcraft, stating that she had given herself to the devil, but that she now repents. Betty wakes up, and she and Abigail name the women that they have seen with the devil. Act 2. Act 2 begins 8 days after Abigail and Betty began accusing individuals of witchcraft. Proctor returns late after working in the fields and eats dinner with his wife Elizabeth. Proctor tells Elizabeth that he is striving to make her happy. Elizabeth questions Proctor to find out if he was late for dinner because he had gone to Salem. She tells Proctor that their servant, Mary Warren, has been in Salem all day. Proctor becomes angry because he told Mary Warren not to go to Salem. Elizabeth tells Proctor that Mary Warren has been named an official of the court. Proctor learns that 4 magistrates have been named to the general court, and the Deputy Governor of Province is now serving as the judge. The court has jailed 14 people for witchcraft. Elizabeth tells Proctor that he must go to Salem and reveal that Abigail is a fake. Proctor hesitates and then reveals he cannot prove what Abigail said because they were alone when they talked. Elizabeth becomes upset with Proctor because he did not tell her that he spent time alone with Abigail. Proctor and Elizabeth argue. Proctor is angry because he believes Elizabeth is accusing him of dishonesty and is suspicious that he has resumed his affair with Abigail. Elizabeth is angry because she does not believe Proctor is completely honest with her. Mary Warren returns to the Proctor house. Proctor is furious that she has been in Salem all day, but Mary Warren tells him she will be gone every day because she is an official of the court. Mary Warren gives Elizabeth a poppet doll that she made while in court. Mary Warren tells Elizabeth and Proctor that 39 people are in jail, and Goody Osborne will hang because she did not confess to witchcraft. Proctor becomes angry because he believes the court is condemning people without any solid evidence or proof. Mary Warren tells them that Elizabeth was accused, but she defended Elizabeth and the court dismissed the accusation. Elizabeth tells Proctor that Abigail wants to get rid of her. Elizabeth believes that Abigail will accuse her of witchcraft and then have her executed. Elizabeth realises that Abigail wants to take her place as Proctor's wife. Elizabeth asks Proctor to speak to Abigail and tell her that no chance exists of Proctor marrying her if something happened to Elizabeth. Elizabeth and Proctor argue again. Reverend Hale visits the Proctor house. Hale tells Elizabeth and Proctor that Elizabeth was named in court. Hale questions Proctor about his poor attendance in church. Hale asks Proctor to recite the 10 Commandments. Proctor can only recall 9, and Elizabeth reminds him of the one he forgot, the commandment forbidding adultery. The fact that Proctor forgets this particular commandment is not unintentional. Irony is created here because the audience, along with Proctor and Elizabeth, realises that he really forgot the commandment when he had the affair with Abigail. Proctor has not incorporated this commandment into his life, so it fails to remain in his memory. Proctor tells Hale that Abigail admitted to him that witchcraft was not responsible for the children's ailments. Hale asks Proctor to testify in court that Abigail is a fraud. Hale then questions Elizabeth to find out if she believes in witches. Giles Corey and Francis Nurse arrive and tell Proctor, Hale and Elizabeth that the court has arrested both Martha Corey and Rebecca Nurse for witchcraft. Ezekiel Cheever, the court clerk, and Marshal Herrick arrive at the Proctor house with a warrant for Elizabeth's arrest. While searching the house, Cheever discovers a poppet that Mary Warren made for Elizabeth and gave to her, and he finds a needle inside the doll. Cheever tells Proctor and Hale that Abigail has charged Elizabeth with attempted murder. Cheever says that Abigail was stabbed with the needle whilst eating at Paris's house, and Abigail accused Elizabeth of sending out her spirit and stabbing her. Mary Warren tells Hale that she made the doll in court that day and stored the needle inside the doll. Mary Warren also states that Abigail saw her sewing this to give to Goody Proctor because she was sat next to Mary Warren that day in court. The men still take Elizabeth into jail, and Hale, Corey, and Nurse leave. Proctor tells Mary Warren that she must testify in court against Abigail because she knows the truth. Mary Warren tells Proctor that she fears testifying against Abigail because Abigail and the other girls will turn against her. Proctor also discovers that Mary Warren knows about his affair with Abigail. Act 3. The court questions and accuses Martha Corey of witchcraft. Giles Corey interrupts the court proceedings and declares that Thomas Putnam is reaching out for land. He is removed from the courtroom and taken to the vestry room. Judge Hathorne, Deputy Governor Danforth, Ezekiel Cheever, and Paris enter the vestry room. Corey says that he owns 600 acres of land and a large quantity of timber. Corey also states that the court is holding his wife Martha by mistake. Corey tells Danforth that he had asked Hale why Martha read books, but he never accused her of witchcraft. Corey and Francis Nurse state that they both have evidence for the court. They have been waiting 3 days to present this evidence, but to no avail. Danforth responds that they must file the appropriate paperwork for the court to hear them. Nurse tells Danforth the girls are pretending. Proctor and Mary Warren enter the vestry room. Proctor tells Danforth that Mary Warren did not see spirits. Although Danforth refuses to accept Mary Warren's signed deposition, he does agree to talk with her. Danforth asks Mary Warren about the spirits that she saw. She tells him that she and the other girls only pretended to see spirits. Danforth also questions Proctor to find out if he is trying to undermine the court. He warns Proctor that anything he is hiding will come out. Proctor states that the court is condemning people solely on the basis of children's accusations. Danforth informs Proctor that Elizabeth claims she is pregnant. Even though the court physically examined Elizabeth, it could not find any sign to prove her pregnancy. Proctor tells Danforth that she will never lie. Danforth agrees to let Elizabeth live for another year because of the unborn child. Proctor gives Danforth a testament stating that Rebecca Nurse and Martha Corey are good, upright women. 91 people have signed the document. Paris argues that the court should summon these people because they question the court. Francis Nurse is upset because he himself promised them that no reprisal would come from signing the document. Danforth reads Giles Corey's deposition. Thomas Putnam is brought into the room. Corey accuses Putnam of prompting his daughter to falsely accuse George Jacobs of witchcraft. Corey claims that Putnam wants Jacobs to hang because anyone hung for witchcraft loses all property rights. Putnam is the only person in Salem who can afford to purchase Jacobs' land once it becomes available. Putnam denies the charge and Danforth requires proof from Corey. Corey refuses to name the individual who overheard Putnam. The court arrests Corey for contempt of court. Hale tells Danforth that people fear the court. Danforth becomes angry and states that only the guilty should be afraid. Hale disagrees and tells Danforth that not everyone who accuses the girls can be guilty. Danforth reads Mary Warren's deposition. The deposition states that she never saw the devil and that the other girls are lying. Hale states that a lawyer should present Proctor's important claim. Hale and Danforth argue over this. After reading the deposition, Paris demands that the court allow him to question Mary Warren. Danforth becomes angry with Paris and denies his request. Danforth warns Mary Warren that she must tell the truth. He also informs her she will go to jail for committing perjury, whether during her previous testimony or now. Danforth summons Abigail and 3 of the girls into the vestry room where he questions Abigail. She denies Mary Warren's charge that she is lying and that she falsely accused Elizabeth Proctor of witchcraft. Danforth learns that the girls danced in the woods. Judge Hathorne questions Mary Warren and asks her to pretend to faint to prove she was pretending previously. When she can't, he insists that she is lying now because she cannot faint as she claims to have done before. Danforth asks Abigail if she could have imagined the spirits. Abigail denies such a possibility. Suddenly, Abigail and the other girls claim that Mary Warren is sending out her spirit against them in the form of a yellow bird. They create a scene together, pressuring Mary Warren, who eventually runs into Abigail's arms, accepting her forgiveness. Proctor calls Abigail a whore and tells the court about their affair. He then defends his wife Elizabeth by saying that she is incapable of lying. The court summons Elizabeth. When she enters the room, no one will speak, and she notices that Proctor and Abigail both have their backs to her. When Danforth asks Elizabeth why she dismissed Abigail, Elizabeth lies, concealing Proctor and Abigail's affair and unknowingly sealing her fate. Act 4. Marshal Herrick wakes up Sarah Good and Tituba to move them to a different jail cell. Sarah and Tituba tell Herrick that they are waiting for the devil and they plan to fly to Barbados with him. Paris summons Danforth and Hathorne and informs them that Hale is attempting to convince the prisoners to confess their crimes. Paris also tells Danforth that Abigail and Mercy Lewis have disappeared. Abigail robbed Paris, and he believes she and Mercy boarded a ship. Danforth and Paris discuss a recent rebellion in Andover. Paris worries that the people of Salem will throw out the court as the people in Andover did. He tells Danforth the townspeople are not happy about the upcoming execution of Rebecca Nurse and John Proctor. Paris found a dagger outside his door, and he fears for his life. He attempts to convince Danforth to postpone the executions until Hale successfully convinces a prisoner to confess. Danforth refuses. Hale informs Danforth that none of the prisoners will confess. Hale asks Danforth to pardon the 7 individuals condemned to die, or allow him more time to persuade them to confess. Danforth refuses. Hale summons Elizabeth. He asks her to convince Proctor to admit his guilt so that the court will not hang him. Elizabeth agrees to speak with him. Proctor and Elizabeth discuss their children and the unborn child she currently carries. Proctor admits that he is considering confessing. He asks Elizabeth if she will respect him if he does. Elizabeth states that it is his decision, and she tells him that she has forgiven him for the affair. Elizabeth realises that she bears a part of the blame for the affair because she is being a cold, suspicious wife in response to her own insecurities. Proctor confesses orally to witchcraft, but refuses to implicate anyone else. Danforth informs him that the court needs proof of his confession in the form of a signed written testimony. Proctor confesses verbally to witchcraft, and Rebecca Nurse hears the confession. She is shocked by Proctor's actions, and she still refuses to confess to witchcraft. Proctor signs his name to the confession, but destroys the document when he learns the court will post it on the church door. The authorities of the court take Proctor out of the prison towards the gallows. Hale pleads with Elizabeth to convince Proctor to change his mind. Elizabeth refuses. She sees now that he is at peace with himself. Thank you for listening to the simple synopsis of The Crucible by Arthur Miller. I hope you find it useful.